Okay, so the topic we're talking about is what we learned from the Beis Hamikdash, the Mishkan, in the way the Torah said it over, for the rest of the Doros. As we saw, Rav Chaim Volozhiner says, in the Parshas Truma, it says, V'chein tasu, which means whatever Hashem was mitzvah, Moshe Rabbeinu, on Har Sinai, tasu l'doros, in yourself. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot to learn from the way the Beis Hamikdash was created and the clothes were created in order for us to learn how we can bring ourselves toward the same tachlis, which is V'shachanti v'socha. Now, in order to give this perspective, we brought out the nikuda that it says in the Ari that the fact that we used to have tzipornaim as the lavush before Chet Adam Rishon, which means that even though the Torah says arumim, that we didn't have clothes, it doesn't mean that we didn't have a lavush. It means the lavush wasn't the same lavush that we have nowadays. In terms of what we had nowadays were arumim. We had a different lavush, which we learned from Rabbi Meir. What's it called? It's called kotnot or, because he says in his Sefer Torah, when Hashem put kotnot or with an ayin, he had an aleph, because he saw the shoresh. He was deep, and he saw what it really is supposed to be. So there was kotnot or. What does kotnot or mean? And what does tipornai mean? The nekuda is that the same way the body nowadays is an expression of the neshama, that there's life in the body, and the life means that whenever something it grows out naturally of the body. So therefore, if something gets ruined in the body, hurt, the body reproduces and fixes it. Mm-hmm. Clothes of Adam HaRishon were the same thing. It's like he's tzipornaim. It grew out of him. And therefore, it was constantly replenishing itself. It grew with him. And because his neshama was able to show up in all of his realms. Okay? And we also said the same thing is true for his space that he was in, right? The space that he was in fit in completely because he was in Gan Eden, which is the Olam HaNeshamos, right? Mm-hmm. And therefore he was able to express his neshama in every one of these spaces. Okay? So...
But you also, I think you said that it applies to Mammon as well.
Right, so the space, it doesn't physically only mean the location. It means all of the domain that is in a person's life, all of the tzomech in a person's life, that is shayach to him, was supposed to be an expression of his neshama. Now we lost that madrega in Chet Adam HaRishon, and the body went down and the lavush went down, and therefore in order for Adam HaRishon to have a lavush, he didn't have any more kotnot or. His body became something which was not able to produce the tzipornaim, right? It wasn't a place where the neshama could show through all the way, so it stayed a room, and he was mitbayesh. There was something missing. Mm-hmm. So Hashem had to give him a replacement, which is kotnot or with an aleph, and other levushim, ayin, right? And alei teina, which we're going to learn about. And
right, because wife and yeah.
Right. And those became the levush for Adam HaRishon, and they had the lack in the fact that they always get destroyed after a certain point. You have to get rid of them because they don't have any chiyus nitzchi, they don't have a chiyus of a neshama in them. And we pointed out
also,
that
there's the lack just on his part of his work is having to integrate himself. Now he has to identify with something, clothes express something instead of him being expressed in his clothes. It's like a whole different experience.
Okay, so that's what we're going to learn about, exactly that point. And I just want to finish off the whole picture, mm-hmm. which is that in Yitzias Mitzrayim, Hashem brought us to a madrega. His point was to bring us back to Adam HaRishon. So what he did was, he created us a space in which our clothes were a hemshech neshama. That's why the clothes did not get messed up. Mm-hmm. And we were in a place of Anani HaKavod, right? And what the Anani HaKavod and the place, the whole way Klal Yisrael was set up, was able to create a Mishkan, which is a place where the neshama of Klal Yisrael, which is the Shechina, which is every collective energy of Klal Yisrael, was able to create a place which is a complete manifestation of itself, in what is itself, what is the manifestation of the Shekhinah in a place, complete dveikus b'Hashem, that now Hashem is nochach in this place because the Shekhinah is fully expressed in this place. Right? We are fully expressed, therefore we create a kli for Hashem. That's what the Mishkan was. And all of the mammon in the Mishkan, all of the things in the Mishkan, we came from Klal Yisrael, not b'mikra. It's not like Hashem couldn't bring down something from Shamayim to create a Mishkan. That wouldn't be the Mishkan. The Mishkan has to be a place of Shekhinah, which means we ourselves create a kli. And what's ourselves? Ourselves included all of the mammon that had in it the energy of nidvas slave, of the ratzon to have Hashem there.
Now, sir, we like your point that the begadim were not balak ne'aleh, which is also a similarity. That the begadim grew them.
Right, exactly. Now, what I'd like to go on is to learn the sugya of clothing from Parshas Tetzaveh.
That's mushla. And you're going to show me how I'm supposed to be able to read the Torah and grow from it.
Exactly.
Not with, preferably with stuff that I would have been able to find for myself.
Okay, so one thing we're going to look at in Niglas HaTorah is a halacha, which comes from the Psukim and from Torah Shebal Peh, which is a fascinating change, a complete metamorphosis of the concept of understanding the concept of levush. And that will give us a petach to understand the levushim of Adam HaRishon, the levushim of Aaron HaKohen, and the levushim that we have nowadays, which is tefillin and tzitzis. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, to understand this, we have to look at a certain halacha. The psukim say, right? V'asu is bigday Aaron, l'kadsho l'chahano li. The begadim, not only were their purpose, as the pasuk says, l'chavar l'sif ares, which the simple translation l'chavar l'sif ares would be like a person who's a king, and when he wears pajamas or he wears muddy clothes, he's still a king. And when he wears a crown,
not expressing that.
It's just an expression of what he is naturally.
Right.
But the psukim say that in order to make him a kohen for me, and it's not just a lashon of a pasuk, but the halacha is that if a kohen does his avoda muchusser begadim, he lacks one of the begadim, both a kohen gadol or a kohen hedyot, the avoda is pasul. But why is the avoda pasul? That's halacha Torah Shebal Peh. But the way the Torah gives it over to us, the drasha is that kol azar hakarev, not only is a avoda psula, he's chayiv misa, right? Why? Because kol azar hakarev yumas. That a zar that comes into the Beis Hamikdash, he doesn't belong there. Therefore, he's putting into a place which doesn't exist. Therefore, he's chayiv misa. The same halacha is true for a person who's a ben Aaron HaKohen, which means he has in his blood, his DNA, his neshama belongs in the Beis Hamikdash. Yet if he doesn't have the begadim, he's a zar. Now this is a fascinating understanding of what a beged is, what a levush is. To explain this, the best mashal that I heard...
It seems to be understanding that the beged defines him. Not that it's an expression, but somehow it creates a status.
Right, which is very difficult to understand because, of course, there's other things that Hashem did to make Aaron HaKohen into Aaron HaKohen, right? Like we say, V'ata hakei v'lecha es Aaron achicha v'es banav mitoch b'nei Yisrael l'chanu li. And there's a whole bunch of karbanos and tenufa, all these things we did to Aaron in order to make him special, right? And Hashem was Mekarvos or Lios Kodesh Kadoshim. So what does it mean that the begadim? Well, obviously, it's inherent to Aaron HaKohen. If a zar puts on the begadim, it won't work. So how could you say the begadim do anything? So the best mashal that I heard from Rav Reuben Sasson, he explained it like this: that if you had a person who was a master in physics, okay, he understood physics perfectly. And he was going to a kenis, right, a place that's teaching physics in China. Okay, so now, in China, he doesn't speak the language.
Right.
So they can be talking about all the things he understands, but in terms of his ability to connect to it, he's just like a person who's totally doesn't know anything about physics. Yeah. He's like a little kid. Not because he's missing the understanding of physics, not because his essence is not connected to this topic. It's because he's missing the kli, right? The instrument under which to connect to the topic that he already is naturally connected to. As soon as he learns the language, that puts him in a place where he now naturally fits in to the topic.
Right.
Okay? Clear? So, a levush is a concept that exists many, many, many places. It's not only in the Beis HaMikdash, we're going to see it all over the place. But what Aaron HaKohen was, when he was going to the Beis HaMikdash, what he was doing was going into a different realm. He was going to a different place in the world. The rules of this place, the spiritual rules, didn't apply as they were in other places. Yeah. So in order for him to be able to interface and connect and be part of this world, he needed the language, which is the levush, that allow his essence, which belongs there, to interface with the new world. Mashal ma'adavar dome. If a person has a neshama, right? Yeah. Now, the neshama, before it comes down to the world, is totally not limited. It can fly around the whole world, look at everything, can be everywhere, right? But it can't interface with the world. Mm-hmm. A guf is a levush, is the clothing for the neshama to belong, to be able to be part of this world. To interface with it, to do stuff, to interact, to talk, to affect what's going on in this world. The same thing is true for Aaron HaKohen. When he walks into the Beis HaMikdash, if he wants to interface, do the things, the spiritual creations that happen through karbanos, through ketores, through all of the things that he does in the Beis HaMikdash, he needs to be having a levush that makes him shaykh to this place.
That's a really interesting interpretation. It just, we're just used to the body of the levush of the body being adequate for everything, but and it's hard to really internalize how this specific clothing would, even if different materials have different energies, but you think they're not creating whole brand new energies that the body wasn't able to access.
So you're saying something that what I understand from you is actually your neshama is like, wait, why can't I do this naturally? And that's actually a very deep point. Because before Adam HaRishon made his chet, that was actually true. There was nothing missing in the body. That's why it says arumim. Because in its natural status, without any external clothing, it was able to interface in Gan Eden, right? Experiencing Hashem. And what happened was when we lost the madrega of that by doing chet Adam HaRishon, what did Hashem do? So it says in the Tikkun Zohar that the bigday kahuna, lechavod, are connected to tzitzis, which is connected to alei tehena, that was tough through alei tehena with the tzitziot. Tiferes is connected to the tefillin, which is connected to the kotnot or. What does that mean? Well, what Rish Shimon is always doing when he's connecting two things, what he's saying is the tikkun that's necessary, that is the same tikkun, that all of these are different versions of how to do that tikkun. So the same way bigday kahuna were the way that that Aaron HaKohen can be shaykh to the Shechina that's in the Beis HaMikdash, when Hashem gave alei tehena and kotnot or, it isn't like the simple understanding is, oh, poor people, they're so embarrassed, okay, let me help them out of their embarrassment, right? And nothing happened, it's just they're not embarrassed. But actually what he was doing, what he was giving them a way back to what the natural status was, that their goof did not need a levush, by giving them a levush of alei tehena and kotnot or, the point of that was to impact Adam Rishon's body and help it be mitukan towards that in this experience, when he's wearing these things, he can have a shaykhis to what was before.
Interesting.
So the bigdei kahuna were the same thing, which Hashem is giving us a matana that our space, the Beis Hamikdash, can be a reflection of our neshama. Now, not every individual, because every individual wasn't holding that madrega, but Klal Yisrael as a whole, yes, we're able to do it. And of course, that's supposed to lead all of Klal Yisrael to do the same thing on their own. So the Kohanim were shlichim of all of Am Yisrael. They were representing the Knesset Yisrael. That's why the Kohen Gadol wore all of Am Yisrael on his chest. Because the gadlus of the kahuna, right, the shleimus of the kahuna is the conglomerate of Am Yisrael together. So in the conglomerate of Am Yisrael together, bigdei kahuna were the agent to allow Adam Rishon's, allow the neshama of Klal Yisrael to be expressed fully in this body, and therefore he belonged in this place where there was Gilui Shechina, like there was Me'en, what there was in Gan Eden. So the bigdei kahuna were like the Alei Te'ena, right? The Kotnot Or, in that it was supposed to bring Adam Rishon back to his original Madrega, to whatever degree that's possible in this stage. And Am Yisrael, we're not Kohanim, we're not in the Beis HaMikdash, but what we have, which is the same type of version, we have tzitzis and we have tefillin. And the tzitzis and the tefillin are exactly, we're going to go into it in detail how, but the tzitzis and the tefillin are the same point. The same way a person who is without tzitzis, in some ways, what we learn from the Zohar, what we learn from the Tetzaveh, is that his ability to do avodas Hashem is limited. Doesn't have the same lavush. He can't go into the same place, the same world, as a person, the same way a Kohen is limited and can't go into the Beis HaMikdash because it doesn't lack the lavush. What?
I don't know if I experienced that.
Right, well, look at...
Really, actually, like, you know, as many Torahs as you find about tzitzis, but Lamaisa, experientially, like, yeah, really not able to be the same.
So let's look into it. We'll see the details, and I think we can understand it. And the same thing is true for tefillin, right? Tefillin put a person in a different place, and we'll have to look at each one, right? But the point is, and I just want to bring out the fullness of this concept. If you notice that it says when we do mitzvahs, we want to have a chalukah derabbanan, right? That mitzvahs are also a way for us having a levush. What's the levush? That when the neshama goes back to Gan Eden, in order to access certain places in Gan Eden, they need a levush. And to the degree the levush they have, that's the ability to access certain places. Okay?
No.
In other words, there's different heichalos in Olam Haba. The same way there's the Mishkan, there's different places that have different experiences in them. Higher levels of understanding of God, or different levels of understanding of God. So in the Sfarim say, when you're doing mitzvahs, you're creating a chukah derabbanan. Right? We say that in the kapitel, the Yiratzon, before putting on tzitzis, right? Chalukah derabbanan. What is that? Now you get the concept better. Is that you can go to Olam Haba, you can go to the Gan Eden. Your neshamas can boldly be, you belong there. But if you don't have a levush, then you lack the ability to integrate, to connect, and to experience.
Why would the neshama need a way to integrate?
Because
experience. But anyway, the levush, all the levush is trying to do is express an energy, and the neshama has to give it the capacity to engage in something. The neshama has that energy.
Correct, but the way that Hashem created the world, in order to facilitate bechira, is that to experience, or not even the way He created the world, to experience godliness in its full, you need to be like Him. And your neshama doesn't ever change. The bechira is not in the neshama. The neshama before and after is a chelek elokam imam. What the bechira, the neshama, can do is impact the guf, which is expresses itself in the olam ha-neshamas before tchias ha-mesim as impacting its levush. Right? The levush of the neshama is the space between the neshama and the guf. In order for the neshama to be poil on the guf, it has to go through things called midos. Right? The guf can do actions, but the koach that pushes us to do actions is fear, it's love, it's desire for respect. It's all of these midos that push us to do things. Those midos, the neshama can influence and make more positive or negative. So when the degree of the place you're in Olam HaNeshamos depends on what levush you created for yourself. The same way, Aaron HaKohen and the Kohanim can only go into the Beis HaMikdash, could only be shayach to the Beis HaMikdash when they have that levush. You can only be shayach to the cholos that are related to this expression of Hashem because you did bechira to create the levush which is shayach to that heichal. If you don't have that levush, you didn't create it, all you are is a neshama, and neshamas can't experience what Hashem has to give because the essence of Hashem, as we learned in Derech Hashem, is one that He created Himself. So if the neshama didn't create anything, he doesn't fit into that heichal. It means he'll be there, but he won't be able to interface with it.
That was very, very interesting.
So everything we're doing can be understood as what levush we are wearing, and we can do actions or tikkunim in order to create levushim. So in Olam Hazeh, we're doing the physical action of putting on the levush. But what that does is influences our midos, that now our neshama is wearing a different levush, and our goof gets impacted by that. So now, when we go to Gan Eden, we'll have this different levush, and when we have Tchias HaMeisim, the goof will be able to implement all of those changes that the neshama wanted to give it, and therefore you'll have a different body. So now I want to look at for a second, what are the bigday kahuna? And since the Zohar HaKadosh was mechaber the bigday kahuna to tefillin and tzitzis, that'll give us an understanding of how tefillin and tzitzis bring us to a place where we are more shayach to the realm of being the kohanim, mamleches kohanim, a goy kadosh in the world.
Okay, I mean there are 4 kohanim clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And maximum 3 parallel, right? Because 2 tefillin and 1 tzitzis. So I guess there's a dimension at least that we're not accessing. But I'm curious. Also, can you remind me which part was parallel to which part of worship? If the Katan was the tzitzis and...
No, the opposite.
No?
We'll look at it, right? There's alei teina. Alei teina had strings attaching it to it, right? And it was something that grew from the ground. Okay, so that's makbil to tzitzis, that it's strings, and pishtan grows from the ground. And that is keneged, what it says in the pasuk, lechavod. The bechina of clothes bringing you kavod.
Okay.
Now, why does a beged bring a person kavod? Let's look at it. Always want to understand the spiritual world. We look at the world, the physical world, what it teaches us about those things, and we can apply it into the spiritual realm. So when a person... Oh, by the way, just to understand how deep this is, we can understand now Bigday Shabbos. Because Shabbos is also a different realm, different experience. And when the halacha is, you shouldn't have Bigday Shabbos ke Bigday Chol, what it's saying is, if you want to be able to interface with the realm of Shabbos, right, your body can be there. But if you want to experience it, you want to be able to translate the words that are being said by Shabbos Kilu, the language of Shabbos, you need to put on the clothes that are shayach to Shabbos. Right? So the clothes that are shayach to Shabbos are ones that what? That represent it's not the same day. It's more special. So it says in the Ari that what you should do is you should go to wash your hands and feet, and you do rechitza, then you go into the mikvah. The same way the Kohen Gadol, before he goes in Yom Kippur, the Kohanim, before they do the Tvila beforehand, they do the Kiyur beforehand, that takes away the external chol begadim, and allows you to go into a new levush, which is expressed in your wearing your Bigday Shabbos. So actually, when you put on Bigday Shabbos, what you're doing is not just, now I'm showing off that it's Shabbos, but you're actually putting yourself and able to interface in a different way, and you can feel it, right? What you can feel if you look at your body in in a dressed up way or not dressed up way, it feels different. And that is what we can learn from the musig of kavod, right? It's true that kavod is an external thing, right? That kavod, what does it mean? Is that from the outside, you're viewed a certain way because you have this beged. But as everybody knows, when you put on certain clothes, the clothes make the man. So you actually step in. If you wear nice clothes that are look respectable, you're going to act more respectable. If you're wearing pajamas, you're going to act like you're going to go to sleep. If you're wearing a t-shirt and jeans, right, you're going to act like that. Right? People choose their clothes because they want a certain uniform to represent where they're holding. So not only are they representing it outside, but they're actually also internalizing and putting themselves in that place of what their clothes represent. So what happens is, when the Kohanim put on bigday kahuna, right? These are clothes that represent service, godly service, okay? And that gives them a certain kavod. They're not standard people. They're not like everybody in the world. They are the person who serves, right? They're shayach to the melech. They're the servants of the melech. They're the ones who take care of his needs. They're the ones who bring him his food, right? They make his house nice, right? They make sure that everything runs in his house. They're different people. So that, they step into that role. Okay? So that's what the bigday kahuna, simple bigday kahuna represents. And therefore, the musig of kavod always is the way you hold yourself to the external world. Now we have, as the Tikkun Zohar tells us, that's Hashem's version of that for the rest of Am Yisrael was the mitzvah of tzitzis. What does the mitzvah of tzitzis do? When you put on white clothes, you're reminding yourself, you're stepping into the role of being a mesharis of Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash. When you put on tzitzis, and therefore you're going to hold yourself in that way towards the rest of the world. When you put on tzitzis, what tzitzis are supposed to remind you of is your beged, is you have kavod. Who are you? First of all, these are simonim that you are one of the Oz VeHadar. You're not one of the Oz VeHadar in his bias, but you're one of the Oz VeHadar in his world. Right? He has certain things in his world that he wants you to do, which is his malchus, mamleches kohanim. Every one of us has a expression of being a kohen. That what? That our job is to bring him into this world, right? Bring his kavod into this world, which means that all of the things that would make us less like a representative of him. Lo sasur acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem asher atem zonim achareim. When a person reminds himself, looks at his tzitzis, it has the potential and the zgula, even if you don't necessarily feel it, but it actually is poil on you. Then now you should have your Yetzer has less power to pull you to things that are below you, things that are low, right? Things that are midos megunos, things that would make you look to other people like less of a person, like a respectable person, and vasisem. And then it's also to do mitzvos that you have a job, you have a direction in this world that you're going to mitake in this world, and reminding yourself, holding yourself in that position, right? That I remember the Taryag mitzvos. I remember that there's a kisei hakavod. What is a kisei hakavod, right? What does the word kisei mean? The word kisei means, the Rambam says, Moreh Nevuchim, kisei represents, he's here, kavua, right? So when we look at the kisei hakavod, which is nirmas on our tcheles, on the tzitzis, right? And the 13 levels, which is 7 rikim and the 6 places in between, and the tcheles, which reminds us of kisei hakavod, we're reminding ourselves that his nochachut, he is consistently here. And it's my job to live that and to make that happen. So it's my job not to make him not want to be here, to do destructive things, represent him in a negative way and doing things that are destructive. And also, Tizku is kol mitzvoisai ani Hashem Elokeichem. That he said kidoshim Elohechem, that I am deeply connected to him, that my goal in life is to create a reality of godliness in every single place in the world. That he's shochen, that his kisei is here. So wearing tzitzis gives you kavod to the world and also puts you in a place of your mechubad. Who are you? You're Mamlechas Kohanim Begod Kodesh. And what the Mishkan is teaching you is that the same way you can relate to Aaron HaKohen or the Kohanim Hedyot, that, whoa, okay, this is a special place, because of these begadim represent them, that's teaching you how you can relate to your own begadim, your own tzitzis, that if you wear the tzitzis, you're stepping into that realm of...
You're saying it's not just that is me choosing to express myself in a certain way, but there are degrees of manifesting Hashem's cover that I wouldn't be able to access that.
Right. He's giving you an eitzah, which is why Chazal say it's asisim is called mitzvosai. The mitzvahs tzitzis is kol mitzvahs kula, right? Is shava kol mitzvahs, because what it does is it puts you in the place of being shayach to all the rest of the mitzvahs. It gives you access to what the Sfarim say, the or hamakif, in all of parts of life. Before you get to the pratim, you're already shayach to the melech. And it gives you, it encourages more kavana, it encourages more presence, like when a person knows what they're doing, a person can do a mitzvah because that's what we do. A person can do a mitzvah because I have a job, and this job is important, I know this is going to create something, a totally different space to be in. And it makes the mitzvahs more powerful.
But we don't ever see it as like a consciousness of what your job is, with tzitzis, or I would think we should do a bit of thinking. And it's like, okay, what is it I want to achieve specifically? Well,
the mitzvah of tzitzis, right? It says mefurish in the pasuk and in Shulchan Aruch that the proper way to mekayim mitzvah tzitzis, right? Re'isem also is to look at them, right? When you look at tzitzis and you remind yourself, it's a process of looking and remembering. Right? Re'isem also u'zechartem kol mitzvos Hashem. The action of looking and using the tzitzis to remind you makes you more effective in your avodah. And it's even if we don't believe in it, even though we understand it, right? We know the mitzvahs are more powerful than just the emotional significance that happens. We actually actualize an or, right? A power inside of ourselves that we wouldn't have, a gvura to stay away from bad things, and a desire to be connected to good things through looking at our tzitzis and wearing them, and obviously doing it in the proper way. Because if you don't use the formula, then it won't have the potential of the magic that it creates, right? So, but
it's weird then that the tzitzis are really for other people.
Why are tzitzis for other people?
Wasn't or somewhere say chal on other people?
Not only is it chal on you, right? Also, it's true that other people, by seeing your tzitzis, can also have an impact. Therefore, a person who is blind should wear tzitzis because his impact on the world is the same.
Yeah,
he is impacting other people. And I want to say something deeper than that. Is that since Am Yisrael is all connected, right? So obviously, when you do that for other people, you get the same thing. By being more this...
On a lesser level, but you get on some level.
Maybe it's a lesser level, maybe it's not. You don't know how deeply things are connected and how much you impact things, right? But it's something that when a person walks around, everybody, when you see tzitzis hanging out, right, you notice it.
Do you actually?
Totally. Tzitzis are something which is that's why a lot of people have difficulty wearing tzitzis, because it actually makes a huge statement, and they don't necessarily identify with that statement.
So
like one of the things that people do when they're mitchazek, the process of doing chizuk, and they want to be more quote-unquote religious or frum or not, the question is kippah, wearing a yarmulke, and tzitzis, which is quite fascinating, right? Because yarmulke also represents that I'm consciousness of the Shekhinah on top of me, and tzitzis represent that I'm an Even HaMelech. So everybody is relating to the fact that they have a big, they show off who you are. Now, if religion is something which is negative for people, then of course it's not going to be kavod to him to wear these tzitzis, and therefore that's why some people don't want to wear them, right? But the potential is that what Hashem intended was we should feel like, wow, we're mamlechas kohanim, right? Like it says in the psukim in V'eschanam, that chochmaschem abinaschem be'ein ha'amim, and people will see, wow, what an amazing nation. right? It will give us kavod because we understand our status. Because for most people, tzitzis, not all most people, but there are a lot of people who believe that religion is a control thing from God, right? And not a comfortable situation, and just means, yes, now I'm one of those people who will do what I'm told and I won't do anything wrong. Then of course you're not going to say, wow, look at me. You know who I am? I take care of the king's need. It's like, wait,
I don't like the king.
Okay, I'll do this because I'm scared of what's going to happen, right? So to the degree that we are really connected to mitzvahs, the more to the degree we will feel the kavod of our tzitzis, and it'll be a beged of kavod, right? But the potential, what we're trying to learn from Parshas Tetzaveh, is that the same way I think it's natural if you saw a Kohen in the Beis HaMikdash and you saw his linen clothing, you saw his white clothing, you're like, whoa, okay. This guy, he's doing something special. He's doing something that not everybody can do in the world. He has a special task of feeding the melech, korbani lachmin ishai. He's giving the food on the mizbeach to the melech, right? And he's being maktir Torahs. He's ki'ilu making the melech have good smells, which obviously is a mashal, right? But he has a very important job. He's not just a guy, right? So that will give us an understanding of what the potential for us to feel kavod when we wear tzitzis.
Okay. And then I'm expecting that the specific materials will teach us about the energies of each.
Right. So if we wanted to go and to relearn all of tzitzis, we would do that, right? But right, we discussed. And we should chazar it. But
no, I mean the materials that are listed for the bigdi kehuna.
Oh, for sure. They're the same materials that are listed, obviously, for.
No, they're not the same materials for tzitzis.
Tamer or pishtan.
That's one of them.
So according to
Tanur
Rav Yisrael, the only thing that you can wear that is chayiv in tzitzis min Torah is the same ones that are bigdi kehuna, tamer or pishtan.
One second. Bigdi kehuna are not made of other things besides the tamer and pishtan?
No, only tamer and pishtan. We can read the pasuk.
I thought we had other materials.
Mm-hmm. The other materials, tcheles v'argama, talas shani v'sheish marzor mashech oshev, right? Mm-hmm. All of those are different colors that semer is painted, right, dyed, that because of the different dye has a different name, right? That's interesting. But the rest of them are all either tzemer or one of them is pishtan. Okay?
It's going to disturb if I chop over here?
No, it's great.
Talas shani is also?
Talas shani, yeah. Talas shani just means, as Rashi says, it's a here, let's see. One second. Where does he explain this? Here. In Parshas Truma, Rashi says, Tcheles v'argaman v'tolah shani v'sheish v'izim. Okay, Tcheles, Rashi says, Tzever tzavua b'dam chilazon v'tzivot yarok. Argaman, Tzever tzavua v'min tzeva sheshmo argaman. Right? Sheish is pishtan. Right?
What?
Sheish, the word sheish in the Torah, it means pishtan.
That is fascinating. Okay.
Right? And Tolah Shani, he doesn't explain over here, but he explain in other places it says Tzemer tzavua b'tzever adom karu tolas.
Okay, point taken.
Okay?
Only time of
So basically it's only in time of Pishtan.
That's fascinating.
And that's why the pashtus is, Torah Rabbi Yishmael, he learns it from the word beged. The only definition of beged is what could be bigdei kahuna. Because you can only actually be acting like an Eved HaMelech if you're wearing begadim that are covered lamalchus. Every other beged, because of their energy level and because of their lack of chashivos, isn't matim to be a mamlechas kohanim.
No.
And we learned that Rabbis.
Mm-hmm. Why don't we dafka have one and linen together?
They do.
We don't.
The bigdei kohanim dafka have wool and linen together.
No. Tzitzis.
We do. If you have minator, you have kollelim and tzitzis. You have tzemer pishtan together. Gedilim taslecha. They'll still bashana as.
Why isn't that mina muvchar?
It is mina muvchar.
What I mean is, why am I not wearing a linen garment with wool strings?
Because since we don't have tchelis, and we don't know the tchelis is tchelis,
Oh.
and therefore we can't. When you don't have the mitzvah of tchelis, then there's no way to solve the problem of kilayim. That's a sugya. The Beis Yosef has come in Pirushim exactly how that works, right? But tachlis lemaisa, since we don't have tchelis, which is tzemer, and therefore the Torah wasn't mitzaveh for people who don't have tchelis to put tzemer on bigdei pishtan, right? Therefore, we don't have the mitzvah in front of us to mix them up, right? But it would be fascinating to understand why the destructive qualities of mixing tzemer with pishtan are not destructive when you are in the Beis HaMikdash, right? And it would obviously have to be that since the neshama is flowing through the clothes naturally, right? In that state, tzemer or pishtan are not a destructive quality. It's only in olam hazeh, in the worlds where there's a situation of pirud, a situation of separation.
The dimensions conflict,
right?
Where paradoxes, where you have
right, energies conflict and they don't work together. But in a place which expresses achdus, it expresses Hashem, which is by definition putting all of things together, then of course it's matim for tzemer or pishtan. So a Jew who is walking around saying he belongs to the Melech, obviously his beged is matim to have oneness in it, that even when things are diametrically opposed to each other, like fire and water, can fit together. And that is his kavod.
Did we ever, besides for our experience with energy, did you ever discuss why they're diametrically opposed to each other? One is the spits of plants, one is the spits of animals. I see them as different categories. I don't see them as mamash opposed. Could we ever explain that beyond that interesting?
Well, what I would say is, if you want to express something, right, and you have something which expresses in a very loud version of something else, each one blocks out, because what's being expressed over here is, let's say, a shleimus of animalistic energy, or a shleimus of plant energy, right? Because the experience of plant is loud, right? It's like hearing two amazing songs at the same time. And each one are beautiful.
Makes sense, right? You can't enjoy them both.
You can't enjoy them both.
They just. That's really smart. I feel that. I feel like it should be more specific though. But even on that level, I hear it.
Right. Conceptually, it makes sense that you can't have two extreme expressions at the same time, right? And then we have to understand.
Much of the song is really smart. Like if you can sometimes play two songs at the same time on your phone, and doesn't really sound great.
It's like when you're ADD or ADHD and you try to do two things at once.
What happened?
You do two things badly. So that's we understand. What we learn from the Beis HaMikdash for ourselves is we're supposed to be kohanim, and our bigdei kahuna, right? Our kamlachas kohanim is our tzitzis. Now we're going to go on to another version, right? Which is tiferes.
I want to get a tissue before I do. Is that okay?
Sure.
Sorry. Also bei mir.
Oh, Ellie, right here.
What?
Right here.
You want to pass them? 1 second.
There you go, right in front of you. There you go. Keep going. There you go.
Where are they everywhere? Talk already. Yeah, listen.
Okay, so the next thing to Tiferes, right? So the Tikkun Zara says that Tiferes is connected the tefillin.
Can you repeat the pasuk again about holding the parts? Just so you.
1 second. Va'asisa bigdei kodesh
Yeah.
la'aron achicha lechavod ulesiferes.
Interesting.
Okay.
Big day kodesh. So there's the big day. There's the begodim for the kohen, and then there's this new level of big day kodesh. Whatever. Okay.
Right. Exactly. Now Tiferes.
Oh, is that specifically for the kohen gadol?
The way the Tikkun Azara says is that the big.
Specifically kodesh l'ar achicha.
No, it also means that also
Is there Bana?
no. It says la'aron achicha lechavod ulesiferes because the Tiferes is only for Aaron achicha, but
It's very weird then that we associate the tefillin to that, or the other tzitzis.
what?
So far we haven't really, we don't seem to be accessing the level of the kohen gadol. So far it feels like what we're accessing at the level of the kohen, which makes
Right.
sense.
So now we're going to talk about the level of Kohen Gadol.
But through the tefillin.
So Tiferes, let's look at what Tiferes is, right? So first of all, the Vilna Gaon says that he says Kibalti, the Asaras, the 4 batim that are on the tefillin, right?
Yeah.
They represent, they're in place of the big day kahuna of the Kohen Gadol, that he has 4 extra begadim.
The kohen god. Oh. Interesting.
Okay? Now, the
At this point, it feels really random. Like no shaykhs, and like it doesn't mean anything to me. Yeah. I'm just communicating. It's not
Right. Okay, so let's try to understand what tefillin do for us, and then we'll see how it makes tiferes, and then we'll see how it relates to the kotnot or. Okay, so maybe we'll start with the.
But again, we're also saying that tzitzis is covered. So if tzitzis is covered, and we're talking about the kohen gadol too.
Yeah, because Kohen Gadol also has big day kahuna regilim.
What? No, I need help. So I'm not ready yet to move on. I need to just set some foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to me the words covered in Zafar are referring specifically to the kohen gadols.
Right, because he has
Begadim,
both.
Not to. No, but then it should have referred to the kohen's begadim, and that would have included those begadim. So really, it's just referring to the extra 4.
The word tiferes. According to the Tikkun Ezra, the word tiferes is specifically referring to the extra 4 that he's wearing.
Oh, mushlam and covered.
Kavod is because of he has the first begadim, so he already has kavod. Now, besides kavod, he has his tiferes.
Oh, that's an interesting way of starting it out. But then, why would the pasuk present it that way? That's really strange. Okay.
Where do you see that, by the way?
What? What do you see? What?
Where do you see that the word tiferes has to do with big day kahuna? We see from the Megillah, right? Because as tiferes, what did it say in the pasuk?
It does use the
It says tiferes gidulaso, right? And Chazal learned from that he wore a big day kahuna.
Big day kahuna or the big kohen gadol?
Big day Kohen Gadol, I'm sorry. He wore big day Kohen Gadol. So you have to imagine this Achashverosh guy sitting on his throne, which is, he has Kisei Shlomo over there. He redepicted Kisei Shlomo. And he has all the begadim of the Kohen Gadol in order that everyone should say, wow, Eitz Tiferes. Right? He has. Okay, so what I'd like to do now, we have 5 minutes left. I think tomorrow we'll go into the pratim of Tiferes, Tefillin, Kotnot Or. Today, what I'd like to do is spend 5 minutes before we switch topics in hearing what you got from all of this experience of learning the Beis HaMikdash like this and connecting to the mitzvahs that we have in our life.
first thing I got, I think, was deeper understanding of tzitzis, and I want to I'm more curious about what I can access that I wouldn't have accessed otherwise. With them, tefillin, and this capacity to integrate energies, and the capacities to just manifest Hashem more in a way that I wouldn't necessarily have been able to without tzitzis. Which I'm curious about. I don't know if I'm experiencing that. I'm just curious about it. Like, is that really true? Really? The guy who doesn't wear tzitzis can't access everything that I can with wearing tzitzis?
Well, if Hashem told you in the Torah, He says, "Leman tiskyu v'asisem zkom etzvayis v'losu achadravchem charei einechem," right? He's telling you a formula, which means you're more susceptible to lasasu acharei levavchem, less susceptible to do His mitzvos, to remember, without tzitzis or with tzitzis. So it's really a question of emunah, right? And what does emunah mean? The word emunah, by definition, is like omein. It's like you're a person who's holding a tinok. You're resting. You're being held by a concept. So here's the Torah is giving you over a concept, and for that He's telling us, listen, you don't have to wear tzitzis, but if you wear tzitzis, this is what's going to happen, and we can either step into that belief or not. The same way the Kohen can say in the Beis Hamikdash, what's the difference if I wear this clothes or this clothes, right? And Hashem is telling you, I'm telling you, there's a huge difference. So we could decide to participate or not.
What did you say omein means?
Oimein, like kasha yisas omein es ayonek, like a mother she's holding her child who's nursing her, right? It's the point is the omein means the way she's held, the way the child is held. That's what emunah means. You're withheld. The ideas are holding you up. It's not like seichel. It's something which is in your being in a deeper place. That it's part of your structure. Conviction, someone translated it as. It's like people who believe that what they read and hear on the radio is true. I trust the radio. I trust the newspaper. I trust the government. I put my trust in that. I mean, I don't know if I personally think that's kind of a dumb thing to do, but people do have trust in that system, right? That's what emunah means. So here's a part of the Torah, and you can either trust it or not. You may not be able to feel it. For two reasons. First of all, you can't feel something unless you do it. Na'aseh v'nishma. And then after you're doing it, you may not realize, wait, I'm actually doing this because of the tzitzis. The only way you'd actually be able to feel it is if you wore tzitzis one day and didn't wear tzitzis another day and were paying attention to your whole life, then you could possibly be in touch with it.
Great. I do connect to my tzitzis though, especially when I'm in a space where I'm not... like, I don't know, let's say when I was going into JSC for the first few times, or, no, JSC is a very good example, but just generally festivals where women were very present and available, it was something I was particularly conscious of, to have my tzitzis out, to be a little bit conscious of them. I think because intuitively there was a degree of like identity that I attached to it, even without having learned it through with you, but I did sort of attach to it as an identity of my value system, of being here. It's very interesting too. And the other thing that meant so big to me was in terms of just like that idea that the fig leaf isn't just, oh, you're not embarrassed anymore, but it's actually working towards his tikkun. I don't know if I yet fully understand it, because I don't know why fig leaf and I don't know whatever, like I'm not quite sure what it's doing to be tikkun. But it's geschmack that the system is beautiful and good on many levels. That Hashem is beautiful and good on many levels. And that even as Adam sins, he's still trying to take care of him. As best he can. I don't take care of him the right way, but that was interesting too.
Right, so I think that it's...
I'm not sure yet if I'm sold on reading the Torah and finding it meaningful in terms of the Mishkan, because I wouldn't know to make the connection between the Zohar and then making the connection to, throughout other appearances.
Well, it's actually not such a jump. It's actually kind of intuitive, because if you think about your life, just once you indoctrinate that concept, this is a miniature version of how my life looks, then you should be able to find different parts of your life naturally there that are like different parts of the Beis HaMikdash.
Should be able to, but I can't.
Why? He made it very clothing.
Very simple.
Right.
I'm going to, this is what we're doing. For 10 minutes, if you're willing, I'm interested in finally setting up my machine, which I should have done at the beginning. It's helpful to remind me to set up my tablet so that I can easily access it, so I don't need to keep asking you to check things for me or whatever. 1 second.